Hey guys, you're listening to this week's episode. For exclusive content, Q&As, and more, check us out on Patreon. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Swear to God podcast. Looks like we're in the apocalypse now, but first let's enjoy that double shot espresso, am I right? Every week we dive into culture and conversation to chew the flavor out of, from politics in Washington to pop culture in Hollywood. If you know who Mitch McConnell is but still spend most of your rent money on concert tickets, you are not alone. You're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Sinners Club. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. I did it. Okay, you guys, this is a bonus episode because there was some important news being reported over the last couple of days, and I wanted to touch upon it. Mostly this is so I can skip my therapy session for the week. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's really important. But yeah, forgive the rant because it is just me solo today. For those of you who thought that I was overly cray or angry about Kanye running for president, if you can even call it that, I understand. I get quite emotional on the podcast, but it's a project and I think I have the right to do that. If it makes me insufferable, I fully accept that and I take responsibility. It's funny, I actually had a good old friend from high school that I hadn't spoken to in years reach out to me, and our politics are so different in a lot of ways. But he said he was trying to think about some people who he thought were good people who disagreed with him and were maybe on the opposite side of the political spectrum, and reach out to them because he said he's just looking forward to us all getting along again. And I completely second that. So, hey, if you're listening, you know who you are. Come on the pod. Let's hang out. I'm really thankful for that text. Anyway, a lot of this stuff that I'm going to quote coming up is pretty much taken directly from some news articles and really good television reporting. So a lot of the words aren't my own, but I have summarized a lot of it to make it a bit more digestible. So if you listen, you're like, oh, this sounds familiar. I'm not plagiarizing. I can post credit and links after the fact. Of course, Kanye West thinks his shit don't stink. He's a megalomaniac. He, talks to God. He thinks he's special, just like a lot of rich people do. And what's really annoying about those kind of people for me lately is how helpful they can be with their money and power and influence. But no, he took $2 million from the PPP, and I've already covered that. So the most important part here is there are levels to this shit. This isn't like hey, I'm The Rock and I'm going to run for president, or even, when we thought Arnold Schwarzenegger running was kind of a joke. Obviously, there's more going on here, and some great reporters have revealed that. Thank goodness for a free press. That's something we can all agree on. It turns out, so there was an ad that was run, I think it was back in March, and it was one of the first ads to quote Trump about the coronavirus, about it disappearing. It's like the flu. It's not a big deal. And we know how that's turned out. I don't need to get into the weeds on that. It hasn't been a miracle and it hasn't disappeared yet. This atheist is waiting for God to do something. That would be awesome. You guys can prove me all wrong. So the world's worst epidemic is here in our country. There's no fighting that. The data is the data. Trump is our leader, and it's election season. So a lot of groups are going to be running ads like that ad that was run. So what was different about this ad, though, is you see all the beautiful work that people are doing on YouTube and on the interwebs. This ad ran on television, and most importantly, it ran on television in a number of swing states. Of course, the Trump campaign was pissed, and they said publicly that no one should air the ad, and they actually threatened to sue everyone that aired it. Now, most of politics is bullshit. I don't love Biden as a candidate, but I understand how I'm voting on the issues, and you're just going to get dirty, and you're just going to have mud slung at you. That's part of the business. It's shitty. There's too much money in advertising in politics, and the American election cycle and season is insane. But that's the name of the game, right? And now he's up to bat. So the Trump campaign threatened to sue everyone that aired this ad. And instead of suing everyone that aired the ad, because a number of places aired it, they happened to pick one TV station. It's a small little TV station, not part of a big conglomerate in northern Wisconsin. And we know Wisconsin is important because why? Dun, 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 swing state. So they sued that little TV station to try and stop them from running the ad. And, as smart people will say, threaten them and intimidate them from running more negative Trump ads in the future. Most legal experts believe that the Trump campaign will not win this case, right? It's public information. The president's statements are public statements. That's just accountability. And they just picked this one station, which is curious. So tactically, it means, even though they won't win on the merits of the case, suing that station could be an effective strategy for them in the long run because, it makes the little guy think twice about running those ads, right? If you don't have enough money, if you're not one of, the horrendous media structure in this country where all the money is siphoned into, the big three, if you don't have the money, how are you going to threaten your livelihood, your financial stability, the lives of your staff to run an ad like that? Right? So it's a pretty much an intimidation campaign. And if you would argue with that, my question would be, why wouldn't he sue all of the places? Right? So in some states, it turns out that legally, if you bring a lawsuit that the court decides is, say, frivolous, it's just meant for harassment, there is a provision in the law in some states, if you bring a bullshit lawsuit, you're going to have to pay all of the legal fees for both sides. You're going to have to cover all of those costs, which we know sue someone is the American way, and legal fees are horrendous. I mean, props to everyone who's a lawyer, except for those ambulance chasers. This is not true, unfortunately, in Wisconsin. There are no protections. So, of course, dun dun dun, you can finish the book here, the Trump campaign picks that station. And what will happen? That station will have no money. All right. It gets more interesting here. Plot twist. There was a docket that was publicly released from that case, and you can see this information online. Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated versus Northland Television LLC. And the Trump campaign here is represented by two attorneys. What's important is the second name, the name of the second attorney, Lane E. Ruland. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, Ruhland. That lawyer who is representing Trump in this intimidation lawsuit has also been seen in footage this week rushing into the state elections board in Wisconsin at the 5 p.m. filing deadline to bring what? Enough signatures to get Kanye West on the ballot for the presidential contest. The birthday party is going mainstream, people. Really. Just let that sink in. So this bitch, she's smart. She's sneaky. This is how they do it. They are so good at politicking. And as I've said before, Dems are fucking trash at it. So really, technically, the Trump campaign is running two candidates for president in Wisconsin. Does anyone not see how problematic this is? And I guarantee you that any of the left-leaning or liberal people around Kanye didn't know this information and didn't have it. If they do now, will they say anything about it? Or is money just the most powerful and important thing ever? I think we know. So there's a watchdog organization. I think it's called the Campaign for Accountability. They've actually filed a complaint with the Wisconsin State Bar Association outlining the conflict of interest here. Isn't it strange that this lawyer is technically working for two different presidential candidates in Wisconsin? So is anyone confused about the fact that Trump and the Republican Party are running the Kanye campaign? See, people, this is why this could be so fucking disastrous. It's not hyperbole anymore. People smarter than you and I are on it. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, no, whatever, yada, yada, it's a conspiracy. Kanye West himself was asked about this. And this breaks my heart because my beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy just gave me some of the most fun nights in college when I actually smoked weed and had fun. But West indicated to Forbes in an interview recently that he may be running to siphon votes from Biden. He didn't say that explicitly, but listen to this. It was pointed out to him by the fastidious reporter that there's no way he's going to get on the ballot in enough states in order to garner enough electoral votes, so he cannot win. And therefore, he will just serve as a spoiler. What Kanye said was, I'm not going to argue with you. Jesus is king. I swear to God. This podcast was built on exasperation. So he wouldn't answer whether he was coordinating his campaign efforts with anyone. He did say, however, he has a, quote, continuing relationship with the Trump White House, that he is designing a school within the next month, and he has a meeting with none other than Betsy DeVos about the post-COVID curriculum, because that's what American teachers need. Kanye West and Betsy DeVos collaborating on their children's schools, right? There are texts from West that this reporter received earlier in the summer, and every single text he reported ended with the sign-off, Trump 2020. Let me repeat that. Every text ended with the sign-off, Trump 2020. He's saying the quiet part out loud. He also said that this was a, quote, God production, which we know how well that's going to go. Maybe I should try and talk to God. Haven't been to church in a while, so. I want it to be more like a Fleabag situation, though, like fall in love with the hot priest and give a confession while my skin's tingling. So part of Trump's plan for re-election is also to fucking run Kanye West. This is so multifaceted and it's so problematic. I wish more people were talking about it because this reporting is serious and important. And if there's any sane person that is attached to the Kardashian brand and the Kardashian behemoth, could they please, please, please speak to fucking Kim and that family about how real this is? Use your money and power elsewhere. Fuck. All this is in the context of the global pandemic. We have an election. Election season is exciting. It's really important. This is also after the news of a month ago, where reporting by the New York Times revealed the Russian Bounties issue, which we've touched upon. We know that the National Security Council had met on the issue, and the claim was that Trump was briefed. Well, the intel was included in his brief, but apparently, somehow that information didn't make it from his briefing page into his brain. And we know that Trump has spoken to Putin multiple times since, and this hasn't come up. He announced this of his own volition. I have an episode coming up with Jimmy Davis, the host of the Moderate podcast, and he has a bit of a different take on this. I didn't push him very much because we were having quite a pleasant conversation and it's easy to get in the weeds on this stuff. But it's just important to remember that this is what we're dealing with and this is who is running the U.S. government right now. Well, new reporting has come out that, dun dun dun, apparently Mike Pompeo did speak to the Russians about the bounty issue after the New York Times reporting. He supposedly did this on July 13th. All right, so that's someone in the administration confronting them about this. I'd say that's a win, right? Chuck that in the win column. That's a dub. But why are we hearing about this right now? Apparently, it's because Pompeo didn't want it to be known that he had done this. Why would that be? Why would that be? Is that because they're running some clandestine operation where the knowledge is public, but for some reason we don't want to reassure our troops that it's going to be this huge operation we can't let the Russians know about? No. He kept it secret in part to, quote, avoid potential fury from President Trump. The president would be so mad if he found out that someone in his government had raised objections of any kind of Russia putting out paid hits against our American troops. And this same reporting has also stated that Trump and Putin have spoken 8 times this year. It's only August in this year. That's twice as many times as they spoke in all of 2019. But it was never about Russia paying to kill Americans. What have they been talking about, you think? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it seems like there's something important that's happening in 90 days. So the U.S. Intelligence Agency has released more information to the American public about Russia, once again, trying to interfere with our election. And this is important. It should be a bipartisan issue. It's amazing in 2020 that it isn't. So the NCSC director has released an updated public warning, updated from his other a couple of weeks ago, about the threat to our elections. And this warning specifically states, I quote, Russia is using a range of measures to publicly degenerate former Vice President Joe Biden and what it sees as anti-Russia establishment. For example, pro-Russia Ukrainian parliamentarian Andriy Dyrkiach, sorry about that, is spreading claims about corruption, including through publicizing leaked phone calls to undermine former Vice President Biden's vice presidency and candidacy. All right, Andre sounds like a stand-up guy. How is he spreading these claims? Well, It has been revealed. Our U.S. intelligence agencies have revealed. No fake news apparatus has revealed this. How is he spreading these claims? In conversation through none other than GOP representatives in Congress. We now have Congress people complicit in this collaboration. One of whom is U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. He heads up the Senate Homeland Security Committee. And the other is a senior senator from Iowa, none other than the lovely Chuck Grassley, who looks like Palpatine to me. The Russian agent is feeding them material, and this is fanning the flames of their investigation of Joe Biden. They've been using that info from this guy as the basis for this huge report into Biden that they're planning to release in mid-September. Convenient timing. And of course, lovely Rudy Giuliani, who's still acting as the president's lawyer, is still participating in all of this. So we have Rudy, who is dispatched abroad. He's collecting Russian intel. It's dirt that's provided by them, bringing it home, passing it into our ecosystems, and the same is being done through these two GOP senators. But never mind Russia using bounties to pay for dead American soldiers. It's only a scandal if someone deems to criticize Russia for that. So we have an administration and his little lapdogs in the Republican Party promoting Russian propaganda on everything from NATO to Ukraine to the coronavirus to election meddling. We know this is a Russian operation to mess with our election, and the Republican Party, members of the U.S. Senate, are willing to ignore our own intelligence agencies and be complicit in this. So who's surprised that they'll also run bullshit third-party candidates like Kanye West on the birthday party? Who's surprised that they're suggesting to move the election date? Trump lawyers are helping to establish Kanye West's campaign. What else? Oh, they're going to make dramatic changes to the post office before the first election that's mostly conducted by mail. The new Postmaster General has fired nearly 24 leaders in the Postal Service, which changes the power dynamic pretty much 90 days before the election. Jimmy Davis and I, the host of the Moderate podcast, who's going to be on next Monday's episode, we spoke about this as well. And he actually had some interesting insight in the process of the registrars and helping out and founding up that system. It's hilarious to me that this was actually a tweet from Brian Tyler Cohen. The post office is secure enough for millions of Americans to send taxes to the IRS every year, secure enough for the government to mail out $1,200 stimulus checks, secure enough to send credit cards and passports and driver's licenses, but not secure enough for ballots. Got it. And I'll add the addendum, unless you're in Florida, because we know Florida's doing it right, according to the commander-in-chief. You see why I need therapy? No, I'm kidding. It's other emotional stuff. But this frivolous lawsuit, a bullshit candidacy by Kanye West, messing with the Postal Service, swallowing all this Russian BS, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate helping the Russian effort along explicitly and knowingly because this is public information released by U.S. intelligence. You accept anti-Biden material from the Russians, you can't pretend you don't know what that means. And of course, they have every single right to gather anti-Biden material, but maybe don't do it from the fucking Russians. The country's top counterintelligence official says, this man you're getting the info from is helping to lead Russia's efforts to re-elect Donald Trump. And I guess that's where we are, that partisan politics overrule a love for America and a free and clear election. On top of all of this, 160,000 Americans dead in 6 months. And the response of the leader of the country is, quote, they are dying. That's true. It is what it is. It will go away like a miracle. There are those that say you can test too much. You know that? This is Trump in the Axios interview with Jonathan Swan, which, stan Jonathan Swan. It's really, really depressing that he did a really good job at basic reporting and pushback. It just shows how shitty everyone else is at interviewing Donald Trump, except for maybe Chris Wallace, which hats off to Chris Wallace. Also, Jonathan Swan's thighs. So Swan responds, who says that? Trump says, read the manuals, read the books. Can you imagine if I went into a job interview and the question is, who says that? And you said, oh, better than the world. Read the manuals, read the books. Where are our standards? Where are the standards of decency anymore? So Swan challenges Trump and says, what books? Instead, Trump responds, when I took over, we didn't even have a test. Right, because the Obama administration was supposed to develop a test for a virus that didn't exist until nearly 3 years after Trump's inauguration. So yeah, I understand if you're going through a little bit of low-grade depression. Anyway, I just saved my therapist 20 minutes of me ranting. And all of this is not to rail fully on the Republican Party, because my God, I hate when everyone says, oh, fuck all people in the Democratic Party. You can't stereotype, but Jesus Christ, people, it's right in front of us. It's right in front of us. It's happening in slow motion before our eyes. And there's some really smart people that are telling us what to do about it, but I don't know if we'll be able to figure that out in time before the election. One of those people, and I've spoken about her before on the pod, is Rachel the Doc Bidicoffer. And she had an amazing thread recently. She said, you know how you can tell the Democrats suck at messaging? After 2 economic collapses, the starving of the government till it can't deal with public health crisis, and the absolute decimation of the American middle class, voters still say Republicans and Trump are better for the economy. She says, by the way, this is connected to a concept from political science literature. Yes, we're getting wonky. Known as, quote, issue ownership, where each party has issues that they own an advantage on, according to voters. Even after the last 20 years, the GOP continues to hold advantages on both the economy and foreign policy. That is because in order to change that perception, someone or something would need to contextualize the GOP's performance on these issues for voters and then get that information in front of voters, which is expensive. However, I argue this massive broad appeal messaging would be worth it because it would address this issue ownership problem, which ties into each party's brand. Ooh, branding, baby. The GOP's brand is bad, but not because it is attacked by Democrats in the way that Democrats' brand has been attacked mercilessly from the GOP via right-wing media and campaigns. If you look at performance versus perception, there are major gaps. Generally, voters think the GOP performs better than they actually do, and Dems perform worse than they actually do. Ugh, I feel that. Now, call me crazy, but it seems like some of this 30K level work would mitigate it and help the party electorally. One of the main changes Democrats need to make is rapid response digital comms where they are positioned to credit claim for things they get done for people. Yes, bitch. Yes. Generally, members are thinking about credit claiming at the individual level. But given that the GOP has gone full Scrooge, there's a ton of brand marketing worth it in telling Americans, hey, that's $600 a week you're getting from unemployment while Trump's fucked up pandemic response is making it so you can't work for a year. That's from the Democrats. The Republicans wanted to give you $200, and some like Representative R. Williams wanted you to get $0. Lose everything you've worked on your whole life to get it. Because issue ownership, like much of public opinion, and like Jerry J. Taylor writes, is built on sand. And a concerted effort could move it away from the wrong perception. That somehow, despite killing it over and over and exploiting it to only benefit the uber wealthy, the GOP is, quote, better with the economy. It's the economy, stupid. In response to Rachel Bidicoffer and the Democrats, some people added some hard data, right? Oh, we love graphs. And they said they own the counterpoint. The economy thrives when the Democrats are in charge. Even Obama's great economy was in fact worst of the modern Dems and beaten by 3 GOPs. But you gotta fault W's 2008 crash for that. And we see, the real GDP has grown about 1.6 times faster under Democrats on average. With Bush, it was 1.6, Clinton 3.7, Reagan 3.4, H.W. Bush 2, Carter 3.4, Nixon and Ford 2.7, Kennedy Johnson 5.3, Eisenhower 2.4, and Truman 4.9. And Rachel says, oh yes, he took it over and it was starting when the crash was starting. What he accomplished was actually remarkable. It will look more remarkable once we have 2020 to compare it to because the Senate Republicans are going full Hoover. And for those of you who I just lost because of facts, sorry. So chew the flavor out of all that, ladies and gentlemen.
Hit it!
Time for indulgences, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
We are now paying our penance at the Center's Debate Club.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
All right. Our debate club this week is a little sad and ridiculous, but hopefully funny. It's been a running joke with my friends and I that I have fully embraced my love of Nickelback. I'm at the point where It only gives me brief shame when I'm letting new people know that I love Nickelback. So there's a moment of shame right now that I'm feeling, but god damn it. You guys, I still love Nickelback. It harkens back to my like 8th grade pretend angst where I dyed half my hair black underneath and had blonde on top and those skater jeans and Hot Topic t-shirt and huge Converse that didn't fit me with pink signs and striped shoelaces. God, who wouldn't like me? Of course I had so many friends. So, am I truly undateable because I unironically like Nickelback? Of course, I'm biased in this debate club and there's no one to debate club me right now. You can comment and tell me how I'm trash. But I'm going to say lovable with semi-questionable taste occasionally. This isn't the full scope of my musical catalog, right? There are a lot of good artists that I like. But I'm never going to be able to tell you guys that once you've heard this. Anyway, this is my defense of Nickelback. And it's mostly because Father John Misty says that Nickelback are good. How You Remind Me still hits. Father John Misty went on record and said, quote, Farmer John Misery, I ride for Nickelback. Well, I ride for Nickelback too, FJM. Okay, Rockstar and Photograph are trash. And those are the songs that hit like top 20 music video, radio, that all the bitches that never listened to Nickelback and never cried alone on a road in Oregon in the forest. You know, like those are the songs that like, you probably joined a sorority, but you still know those songs if you're my age, which I'm going to be 31 in October, so God help me. But listen. Flat on the Floor still hits. I remember when I actually was a human being with a life and I was in the weight room for volleyball, lifting, and all these dudes were around, and you know the dynamic if you've been in places like that before, but you're listening to like Slayer and some awesome shit, and maybe you like nod your head and you know a couple of the words. No dude is gonna be pissed when Flat on the Floor comes on in the weight room. No one. I promise you. And if you give it the 30 seconds before, you know, Ramen Head Chad Kroger starts singing, which I don't think he has a bad voice, you guys, no one would know. Unless you're like a true metalhead, no one would know. Figured You Out, class. Figured You Out is like the song that just like digs into the deepest parts of myself that are just trash, you know, just like, it reminds me of, you know, drinking cheap beer and taking like whiskey shots in that dive bar. And just being like, yes, you know, Chad, I'm going to go home with Chad tonight. I don't know. It's a small town thing, but it just like, it's like comforting. And you feel like, you know, the Black Widow, I don't know. It's not bad. Should have listened. I still have that song on my iTunes and I listen to it when I'm sad. Every emotionally constipated white boy who had a wallet chain and like those parachute pants and spiked hair back in the day still has something to learn from that song. I promise you. And then finally, Animals, which I think is a track that's slept on. Nickelback's Animals walked so Buck Cherry's Crazy Bitch could run. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say about that. All right. I don't know. Post-pandemic, we'll see.
I did try. She was married. So salty. I'll still think about it.
And then he said, don't you just love the smell of napalm in the morning?
We be faster than Django.
We are in the apocalypse now.
I can't stop, won't stop. Did try. She was married.
Because the larger theme of this bonus episode is, well, there are so many, but, you know, money rules everything. We know that. And no political party is immune to that. And typically, people with a lot of money are horrendous about it. Like, I was watching the latest season of Last Chance U. It's about Laney Community College in Oakland. Really good series on Netflix if you guys haven't checked it out. It's feeding colleges for guys that want to make it in D1. And for a lot of these athletes, it's their only way out of poverty. But I was just thinking, like, God damn it, name any millionaire. I mean, I keep bringing up the Kardashians because they're fucking co-signing Kanye West, but think about like one of those guys on that show, how much $100,000 would change his life. It wouldn't even have to be that, and how much that's a drop in the bucket for so many famous people. Like, do you really have to go to Nobu and get your expensive sushi and get that Botox for the month? Or maybe could you save someone's life? And not as a charity case, but because they're fucking hard workers. One of these kids was sleeping in his car, getting up for practice early in the morning, going to school, working at a chicken wing stop at night, and doing it over again. So I saw a really interesting post on Instagram. It's from an account called The Knowledge Gen Ninja, about hidden rules amongst classes. And this is stuff that we don't think about. This is why I encourage everyone to take a sociology class. Money. For people in poverty, it's to be spent. For people in the middle class, it's to be managed. And for the wealthy, it's to be invested. So I'm going to talk through all these different things for people in poverty, in the middle class, and the wealthy. Personality. If you're impoverished, it's your sense of humor. Middle class, it's achievement. Wealthy, it's connections. Social emphasis. Inclusion, self-sufficiency, exclusion. Food. For those that are impoverished, it's about quantity. In the middle, it's about quality. And for the wealthy, it's all about that presentation, baby. Time. In the moment, against the future, or about tradition. Education. It's abstract. Success and money, or maintaining connections, which, who knows Jared and Ivanka? Oh, the Wests. Language. Casual register, formal negotiation, or formal networking. Family structure. For those impoverished, it's typically matriarchal. Middle class, patriarchal. And the wealthy, it's who has the money. Driving forces, relationships, achievement, financial, and social. And then destiny. If you're impoverished, it's fate or can't. In the middle class, it's often posited as choice. And the wealthy, it's expectation. What else do you expect for yourself? And this ties nicely into our Apocalypse Now segment for this week. Have you guys been reading about what's happening with a little organization I like to call the NRA? There's a lawsuit that has been brought against the NRA by this boss-ass bitch, New York State Attorney General Leticia James. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. So much respect for that woman. I hope she has really good security. And we don't have to get into the politics of the NRA, which I believe it's too powerful and it has too much political influence. But I don't think that if you are a gun owner who wants to be part of that organization, that you shouldn't be able to, right? But this lawsuit, which I think that NRA members should be thankful for the lawsuit. I would hope that they would actually be thankful for this lawsuit because it highlights how the NRA has defrauded its own members. It's not taking my money. It's taking your money. So this lawsuit says that the NRA leaders have been violating state and federal laws because they've been diverting millions of dollars that were meant for the NRA's operations into their own personal coffers, which Kel Surprise, and who heads up the NRA, Wayne LaPierre, he's been the executive vice president and the chief executive for it's like 40 years, 39 years. So talk about class and talk about manipulation and money in politics, right? We'll see what happens with that, but thank goodness for people like Leticia James doing the good work. Because it's not all apocalypse. Right now, it's time for a little cream for your coffee and mint for your julep. It's apocalypse now, but first coffee. And my coffee moment for this week is a new show that is available to stream on Amazon Prime. It's called Pan y Circo. Sorry, my Spanish accent sucks. I know like very basic Spanish. I wish I was fluent, but that's just how I do things, like half-ass. It means bread and circus, I think. And Diego Luna is the host. If you don't know who Diego Luna is, my God. This is another really shameful thing I have to admit, but my like guilty pleasure movie is a movie that Diego Luna was in. He probably wants to forget the fact that he was in it. Dirty Dancing Havana Nights. I own the DVD, okay? Maybe I am undateable. It was the second Dirty Dancing. They made a second one, okay? It was set in Cuba during the revolution. Anyway, Diego Luna was in Y Tu Mama Tambien, which is a great movie. He's also fucking in Rogue One in Star Wars, which I fucking loved. We can dedicate an entire episode to that movie because it was so boss, and I definitely cried at the end. He was in Narcos Mexico, that series is amazing. Every season is amazing. His season was really good. So this new series that he has, it's much more casual. He's himself. He's the host. And he hopes that it will compel the audience to think through these big conversations. Like I say, chew the flavor out of something. The title is a reference to a poem, Satire X, by a Roman poet, Juvenal. He wrote it in the 2nd century that bread and circuses, food and entertainment are all that's needed to convince Romans to give up their political freedoms. Diego Luna says, the title was not my idea, but when I heard it for the first time, I was like, it's perfect. It's perfect because it has the irony that the show wants to have. It's kind of like the show. It's a reaction of many years of bread and circus in his country. But what's awesome is the concept applies to many other countries as well, where politics are a kind of show for us to witness and to get hooked on. And he says he believes that coming together, so the premise of the show is he brings a number of experts in different fields together as well as a chef, and they all sit down in these different locations at a dinner table and eat and connect. The first episode is a COVID episode, and they specifically talk about that over Zoom, but the other episodes were filmed before, and it's kind of like Chef's Table, but political, which is awesome. So he says he believes that coming together to eat and to talk is the first step in breaking that cycle. And in the first episode of Pani Circo, he asked the audience to imagine a better future after the pandemic is over. He says, quote, even after the end of the outbreak, the damaged systems will remain damaged. And if we want to fix them, if we have the will to repair what's wrong, we have to sit at the table. I love that thought. I think it's a perfect thing to end with. So please, if you can, go check out the show. It'll help you learn a little bit of Spanish. If you don't know Spanish, they have subtitles. It makes you think. It's a wonderful platform, and it's people from all across the spectrum, so many different backgrounds. So yeah, if we want to fix them, if we have the will to repair what's wrong, we have to sit at the table. Awesome. All right, I'm going to link this week's song in our description. And I hope you guys have a great week. Get into some good trouble.
Honestly, I don't know who the fuck to trust. Is she my friend or my foe? I must have exit drove. Yeah, she give me that claim I was wrong. I remember back when I was younger, I was happy. Nowadays feel like no one understand me. I'm good at artists, silly on Bob, Bambi. Baby's yellow text. She wanna eat me like candy. Running through racks, track me. I run up the racks like an athlete. Big facts, you're the dick, 6 flags. Ballin' like dick flags. Told her I love her, I ain't really mean that, yeah.
Nowadays these people are friends. Remember way back she was love. These bitches sneaky can't cover. I got 4 of the quintuplets. I remember. Remember I was selling dog food, no kibbles, just to get me some skrilla. Remember I was really on the block like Tetris, just to get me some chip.
Surfing, rock in the parking lot, my weed lighter, and like the gay bubble. I be on her mind like non-stop, yeah. Had to cut the little thought, no tomahawk. Remember smoking blunts with my friends. Seconds, a couple of days, yeah, lost a lot to the fan. That's the shit got me upset, but at 8, then I finally thought, yeah, I'm smoking with side. 4-4, I'm a zombie. This a girl, but she want. These little boys think I'm cocky.
My bitch real like Mary Poppins. Yo, bitch still like an ice. Smoking on killer, I eat a coffee. My bitch drip like Mary Poppins. Yo, bitch still like an ice. Smoking on killer, I eat a coffee. Nowadays these people are friends. Remember way back she was love. These bitches sneaky can't cope. I got 4 of the quintuplets. I remember. I remember.